to kick us off this evening, I think this is mainly for Martin and Kwame, but I would hate to stop you, Aaron and Sam, for jumping in as well. So why do you think this unit is important, and why is it important now? So, go for it, Kwame.
Such a big question. I think, to echo what's been said, when we think about, especially if we think about the context of the UK, the way that it's been taught traditionally is quite insular, and we don't tend to think of kind of the multiple ways in which British identity has been shaped by migration, right? And so what I would say is this is why it's so important, and especially in a time which is changing, and I do say this a lot, when we think about the way that the world has changed over the past 20 years or so, it's no longer, as I said, insular in that way, that you can open up your phone and you can be somewhere else, you can be engaging with people from around the world. So it's not just important that we teach kind of migration or a history of migration in this way, but it's also important for those students or young people that are seeking to go out. I think a lot of the time when we think about education, we tend to think, oh, if it's in a diverse area, then that's okay, we should teach it in this way, right? But then if it's not in a diverse area, then it's not really, but it's actually the exact opposite. If we're going to equip our young people today to be able to go out and experience the world in all its entirety, right, then we also need to be able to teach them how to interact with people from around the world and also understand their own history and that own history of interaction as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that this evening we've got people from a range of different schools across London and the southeast, so presumably different contexts people are teaching in as well, but important everywhere. Everywhere indeed. So, Martin, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, if you'll let me, I'd like to read something out. And it's...
I will.
In 1929, in South Shields, somebody ended up in court for a minor offence. And a description of his day appeared in the papers, which was reported by the historian Laura Tabile. And this was his day, on the day in question. He collected his unemployment money, gave it directly to his wife, handing over the pay packet was a working class custom. And then he went straight home and gave his missus the 28 shillings. He'd stopped for a drink at the Hot Pole pub, placed a bet with bookmaker Robert Owen Stokes, bumped into his son running an errand for his mum. Dad, I want to buy some cake, said his son. So in the evening, he suspended a game of bagatelle and took his wife to the cinema. Now this is actually the story of Nagi Mohammed, who was a Yemeni merchant seaman based in South Shields, married to a local woman. And the point that Laura Tabile says is the whole question of identity and who you are is thrown around, because here is a typical northeastern working class man doing what northeastern working class men do. But he's, in fact, is a Yemeni Muslim. And only a few years before, when there had been riots in South Shields, the people representing the Yemenis argued that the local ship owners should employ local British people rather than foreigners. And what they meant was, by the local British people, they meant the Yemenis. And when they said the foreigners, they meant Western Europeans. The point I'm trying to make here is this question of who we are and what Britishness is continually changes, and it's never resolved. Daniel Defoe said, a true-born Englishman's a contradiction. So if I may, I've got just a few reasons why I think this is so important. One, for our young people, it's the movement of ordinary people shaping history. We tend to learn what people on top do, but this is reminding us that you and me and our families and our ancestors are the people who changed everything by picking up sticks and moving to somewhere where they hope for a better life, usually led by the women. And what then happens is that as people move, they change everything. So whether it's the Vikings changing huge aspects of this country, or whether it's the Flemings moving us into a manufacturing economy, or whether it's the Huguenots helping kickstart our financial business capitalism, or whether, for that matter, it is those merchant seamen who enable Britain to survive in the First and Second World Wars because they're working in the convoys and they're from Africa, the Caribbean and Asia and those convoys across the Atlantic, or whether it's the Irish navvies building all the networks of communications for the Industrial Revolution. They are absolutely crucial. So students can understand that it's a place in history of themselves, their families, their communities and their locations. And I love the fact that the Pearson course is about places and people, about places all the way around the country. We're in Black History Month. It also puts Black British history not on the margins, not in one month, but as an integral part of a shared history, even if conflictive often. It's right in the centre of a history that we are all in the centre of. And I've got a couple of other things, if I may. I know I've gone on a bit, but it also shows that the question of race is fluid. Just look at the story of the African Tudors to understand that what we think we know about race, actually we don't. It shows change through activism in different ways. The whole story of Notting Hill is people, it's migrant people, in this case, the black community, having agency in our history. And finally, I would say this, that it reminds us, and this is a history teacher saying, if you believe in a knowledge-rich history, then this is the knowledge that peoples the silences that have been in our history. This is the knowledge our students need to be active in making history themselves. And as today, migration remains, even today in the Tory conference, an ongoing controversy, it also means that the second-order concepts, the issues of bias and relevance and significance and interpretation, they absolutely burst out of this topic. And finally, it really is finally, it's about understanding that British history has never been just about these islands. It's always been global. Empire tells us this, but even before the British Empire, it has always been a history which has been connected with the whole of the rest of the world, doing things to it and having things done by it.
Now you're going to clap everyone's answers, okay? It's only fair. But it brings it really back to what Kwame said about this, it's no longer, we cannot teach insular history anymore. This is, and I love that quote about knowledge that peoples the silences, and this is a module in order to do that.